everyone, this is Taylor with the Daily Geddon, and this week we're going to look at S4320. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've done a video, but I appreciate you for sticking around and coming to watch the video. And this one's an important video. I'm glad that I waited a little bit because this is the newest coronavirus response and relief bill from Republicans in the Senate that's supposed to relieve everybody in America, and it gives a bunch of money away. We're going to get into it and we'll get into the specifics, and with that we're going to roll the intro. Throughout the entirety of this video, I want you to keep in mind one thing, and that is the phrase to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. And that is because this entire bill is littered with that phrase. It is a huge appropriations bill that's going to give money to some key areas like the educational system and the healthcare system, which are desperate in need of money in order to actually fight the coronavirus, but it also makes some appropriations that are definitely some misuses of our taxpayer dollars, I'm not gonna lie to you, and it follows each appropriation with that exact phrase, to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. X money is to prevent, to prepare for, and respond to coronavirus. Keep that in mind. The bill starts out strong by giving a bunch of money to agricultural programs and fisheries, which is a really great thing. Everybody needs to eat. That's awesome. We need to help those guys fight coronavirus. I get that. And then it absolutely just swings for the fences, and it appropriates $1.75 billion to create a new FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. What were you thinking? How is that going to prevent, prepare for, or help respond to coronavirus? That makes absolutely no sense. Why do you need a new building for that much money? And that's why there's a lot of outrage about this bill, because of that one line. And there's more. Trust me, there's more. The next part of this bill kind of took me by surprise, and that's because with this bill and the attention that it's getting, the amount of attention that it's getting, I usually get something in my Twitter feed that says all the bad stuff about this bill, the useless stuff, all the wasteful stuff, and I was really shocked when this wasn't part of that. And that's because we're appropriating over $1 billion to NASA to prevent, prepare for, and fight coronavirus. We're giving them $224 million for science. That's literally what the bill says, in quotes, science, to prevent, prepare for, and fight coronavirus. We're also giving them $818 million in order to fight coronavirus with exploration. We're going to explore Mars in order to potentially find the cure or the vaccine for coronavirus on Mars. I don't get it. I don't see how it got in this bill, and it doesn't make any sense to me at all. The next part of this bill is where it went completely off the rails, and it's because it's a huge amount of money being appropriated to the Department of Defense. Not that that's initially a bad thing, or that it's a bad thing to give money to the defense. I understand it, but this money, for these reasons, and I can't believe they would explicitly state them this way, it's almost a slap in the face to anybody that has ever had coronavirus or suffered from coronavirus, had a loved one suffered from coronavirus, because to say that these things are to prevent and respond to coronavirus is just insulting, honestly. And what it does is it appropriates almost $10 billion just for operational maintenance, things like that for the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. That's just for maintenance. And then it goes on to list out just billions and billions of dollars to specific programs, upgrading ship depots, buying aircraft, buying certain armored personnel carriers, things like that. Just all of these random things, buying these very specific pieces of equipment with taxpayer dollars to say they are to prevent coronavirus. Are they planning on just exterminating people? I don't know. Do they need to beef up things in case we become coronavirus zombies and come after them and it's the apocalypse? Who knows what they're thinking, but this is absolutely ridiculous, and I cannot believe that they would even put this in front of people and have them actually talk about it in Congress. It's a complete waste of time, and it's extremely insulting. Another thing I found interesting in the bill is that we're giving $306 million to the Department of Energy in order to help them run a program that would help spread coronavirus health information out to professionals for them to analyze and help prevent coronavirus in that way. The reason I find that so interesting is because I would think that the Department of Health would be more suited to come up with a way in order to get that information to doctors and to healthcare professionals in order to analyze it and come up with some type of vaccine or something. I don't know why you'd give the program to the Department of Energy to figure it out and say, this is what we want. Department of Energy, go figure it out and find the best way to do it. I figured that the healthcare officials would be the best ones in order to come up with such a program. I don't know if it's a money grab. I don't know if they're trying to just feed money to the Department of Energy, but That's the way it comes off to me. I don't know why you would set up a program in some department that doesn't really seem like it would be the one taking care of it. We talked about some flaws in the bill, but there are some good things as well. And the first one I'm going to talk about is a $2 billion appropriation to the IRS. And that $2 billion is supposed to be used for technology modernization, which is a really great thing. And as long as you're trying to push things forward, I think $2 billion could be used somewhere else right now much more efficiently, but it's at least a push towards a more modern era where a lot of things are very archaic and are very old. The bill would also appropriate $105 billion to the educational system, 5% of which would go to each state's governor so that they can spend and appropriate that money the way that they see fit in order to help schools keep running. 67% of that goes to elementary and secondary schools across the nation for them to keep running. And the remainder would go to places of higher education, things like colleges, state schools, that type of thing. So here's the kicker behind this piece of legislation, and that is the timeline. This thing needs to get passed immediately in order for educational systems to see any kind of benefit from this bill. Right now, this bill needs to get all the way through the Senate, through the House, signed into law, and there is just absolutely no way that is happening, and rightfully so. This bill has a bunch of crap in it that just needs to be cut out that has nothing to do with preventing coronavirus. But let's say it does get passed in a week, which is absolutely lightning fast for any piece of legislation. So it passes in a week. Now schools have to come up with a plan in order, from this bill, schools have to come up with a plan in order to even realize the funds from this bill. They have to get 50% of the students into schools for 50% of the time, physically at schools, in order to realize the full benefit. Otherwise, they only get a third of the money that they would from this bill, and the rest of it gets sent to other schools that came up with a plan. That is such a tight timeline. They have about a month to come up with a plan to get this money before school starts. God only knows how they're going to process all those requests. So, that being said, why not invest the money into adapting the school system to the current way things are? Why submit an entire generation to potential high infection rates from the horrible disease and then submit their families that they go home to that same disease that they could have caught from school? That just seems so backwards to me. Why are we stuck in this old way, and why can we not adapt even a little bit in order to accommodate this virus and potentially prevent a ton of infections? I know colleges do it all the time. When I went to college, we basically didn't even need a professor. They could have emailed us videos of themselves and we could have gotten the same stuff out of it that we got when we went to lecture. Honestly, that's my honest opinion about the matter. With a little bit of time and money, we could come up with a way to completely get around having to go to school during this time. We could come up with a way to teleteach. I know you've seen the memes. They basically did it at the end of last school year. We expected teachers to drop everything all of a sudden to come up with lesson plans over the internet with absolutely no funding, no structure, no nothing. With a little bit of investment, we can come up with a system that does that for us, and it does it well and efficiently, and it still obtains the same type of curriculum that we need in order to grow and keep people educated. So we've gotten through kind of the meat and potatoes of the bill, both the horrible things and then some of the educational stuff that they're really pushing forward to try to get people into school. So with that, we're just going to go through some miscellaneous appropriations and some stuff that is still important, but it's not the meat of the bill. So with that, I'm going to go pretty quickly, so just pause the video if you really need to in order to see the numbers. Indian Health Services, upgrade to unemployment processing, various healthcare system upgrades, mental health services, Medicare and Medicaid services, social services emergency fund, and rental assistance. There were a couple things throughout the bill that I identified that I think are kind of like special interest groups. I'm just going to name a couple off, and I'm going to show you the amount on the screen that each of those got, and we're going to go through it really quickly and not really deep dive into it, but it just seems like special interest groups kind of found their way into the bill, and this thing's dead on arrival anyway, so I don't see why going into detail about these special interest groups is really that big of a deal when you have $1.75 billion for an FBI headquarters. Anyways, that's my opinion. The Secret Service, cybersecurity, building a new wing on the Pennsylvania Avenue screening facility, salaries for the Tiny Findings Child Development Center, offset fees for border security, giving the president operating costs, continuity of the National Weather Service. I know my opinion on this bill has been very clear throughout the video, but in case you didn't get it, I think it's absolutely garbage and just honestly needs to be scrapped altogether and redone top to bottom, because I don't know what kind of message the Republican senators are trying to send, but they basically just slapped American taxpayers in the face and tried to steal our money. And I try not to go overboard and be too extreme, but honestly, that's what this is. It was them trying to steal our taxpayer dollars and put it to, I don't know why, but pay for a bunch of military things like making new vehicles and paying for missiles and buying jets and buying new headquarters. I don't get it. If you're really for the American people and you're trying to prevent coronavirus, I don't know why you need to build a bunch more jets in order to fight coronavirus. That's not helping anyone. Anybody could see that. Any person with any kind of common sense could see that. I'm sorry, I try not to get too extreme, but it baffles me that people think that this is the way to go. And somebody actually wrote this down and thought, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's send it. Introduce it in Congress. Let's waste everybody's time. Anyways, that's all I have for you today in this video. I appreciate you for sticking around. I appreciate you for watching. I'm really glad to be back. Remember to like, subscribe, comment if you got anything to say, follow me on Twitter, and with that, have a good one, guys.